Is it worth it to try and become an architect in 2021? In this video, we're going to talk about compensation, the jobs market or lack thereof. Architects are struggling right now with particular job opportunities. We're also going to talk about Myers-Briggs, educational requirements, and more. But first, what is an architect and what do they do? Architects plan and design structures such as private residences, skyscrapers, office buildings, theaters, factories, and many other different types of structures. Often this planning involves preparing scale drawings or architectural designs using CAD software, or also known as computer-aided design. Architects often work on a team of other professionals. Architects are often tasked with preparing contract documents for building contractors, meeting with different kinds of clients to review or discuss architectural drawings, conducting periodic on-site observations of construction work to monitor compliance with plans, and more. Lately, architects have been involved in designing environmentally sound structural upgrades to existing buildings. One thing that people don't know about architects is about 17% of architects are self-employed. This could be a great occupation if you're entrepreneurial minded or particularly ambitious. Many architects have the opportunity to consult or potentially start their own firms. Architecture is also one of the few artistic occupations out there. There's really only a little over 24 artistic occupations out there available to people that want to be self-expressive and really express their individuality. According to the Occupational Information Network, if you were to take a RIASEC assessment, the Holland codes for architects would be AIE, meaning this is primarily a pretty artistic occupation. To become an architect pretty much all over the United States, you need a bachelor's degree. According again to the Occupational Information Network, about 56% of architects have a bachelor's degree, about 19% have a master's degree, and about 15% have some kind of professional degree. We're going to get into how competitive this occupation is a little bit later. We're going to go over job market statistics, but it might be recommended to go ahead and get that master's degree to stand out from the competition. And before we get into the job market for architects, we're first going to get into compensation. Regarding compensation, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2020, the average base salary for an architect nationwide was $89,470. This is greater than landscape architects, surveyors, and urban and regional planners. But this is less than architecture and engineering managers, architecture teachers, and civil engineers. And if you look at the history of pay for architects going back about 2 decades, their pay has grown pretty substantially. In the year 2000, the average base salary for an architect was $56,020. This grew to $89,470 in the year 2020. This gives us a 2-decade wage growth of about $1,600 per year. Unfortunately, the wage growth has slowed a little bit. This might be related to the job market. It is pretty competitive to get an architecture job right now. We'll get into that a little bit later. But just looking from 2015 to 2020, wage growth has been $1,100, so it has slowed down a little bit. If wage growth were to resume to its 2-decade normal, by 2024, the average base salary for an architect would be around $96,000, and by 2030, it would be around $105,000. And those numbers I just gave you are for the entire country. If we actually break things out by state, it gets actually a little bit more interesting. There's very specific places that tend to pay architects a lot more than others, and these are particular states that you wouldn't be surprised. Apparently, DC, New York, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Alaska all tend to pay architects a pretty good wage. In Washington, D.C., the average base pay for an architect is about $110,000, and in New York, it's about $102,000. There's some very specific places that pay architects way above the average national pay. Next, we're going to get into the job market. We're really going to examine how competitive it is to try and become an architect in 2021. The first thing to understand about the job market is there's about 103,900 employed architects in the workforce in 2020. This means it's kind of a mid-sized occupation. It's not quite as big as, say, the civil engineering workforce, but it is substantially larger than, say, the surveyor workforce or the number of urban and regional planners employed in the United States. Now, unfortunately for architects, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride over the past 2 decades when you look at the number of employed architects over time. In the year 2000, there was 74,390 employed architects. This actually peaked in 2008, where there was 110,990 employed architects nationwide. And unfortunately, it hasn't hit this high since. The Great Recession occurred. The number of employed architects fell dramatically from 2008 to 2012. But from 2012 onward, the number of employed architects has risen. And by 2020, there was about 104,000 employed architects all across the country. So no surprise here, but the number of employed architects really depends on construction in the United States. I know, shocker. Recently, America has really started building again. And you would think that as housing starts go up and up and up over the years, the number of employed architects would also follow, but this isn't the case. The government is actually predicting only a 1% growth in the number of architects over the next 10 years. This would mean that by 2030, there would be about 105,000 according to the government's forecast, which is still less than the 2008-2009 high of employed architects. Another thing that you should keep in mind before trying to become an architect is understand that there are certain states that employ the vast majority of architects. No surprise here. In the state of California, there was over 15,000 employed architects. In the state of New York, over 11,000. California, New York, Texas, Illinois, and Florida, basically the states with the greatest number of people, have the greatest number of opportunities for architects, specifically California and New York. So if you don't want to live in one of these big cities, this occupation is definitely not for you. Another way to gauge the competitiveness of different occupations is to use job boards such as Indeed, Glassdoor, and LinkedIn. I use all three of these job platforms to look at how competitive different occupations are. When I searched for architect job postings in the United States on Glassdoor, I came up with about 9,770 job opportunities. On Indeed, I found 3,468 job opportunities for architects in the United States. Now, usually this is a great way to gauge how competitive a particular occupation is. Unfortunately, when you look through all these different job postings, you notice a lot of software developer positions, like a solutions architect or a cloud-based architect. This means that there's substantially less job postings for architects than these numbers actually kind of convey. But even looking at all these job postings, especially with non-architecture job postings filtered in, the numbers do not look good. There's around 104,000 employed and possibly less than 3,000 job postings. This means it is extremely competitive. Finally, one thing people like to do to see if they're compatible with a particular occupation is to take a Myers-Briggs personality test and figure out their type. According to the Myers-Briggs company, the 4 most likely Myers-Briggs types to become architects, this was actually kind of surprising to me. But number 1 was actually the ENTJ, the commander, followed by the INTJ, the architect, which is how fitting, right? Number 3, INTP, the thinker, and number 4, ENTP, the debater. What all 4 personality types that are most likely to become architects have in common is they have a preference for thinking over feeling, which should be no surprise. Another thing all 4 types have in common is they also have a preference for intuitive over sensing. If you enjoyed this video, definitely also check out my civil engineering video. But if you're very, very artistic, check out my sound engineer video. Both these occupations might be compatible with your interests and personality. Thanks so much, and I will see you in the next video.